I think I have to say that these are the best questions I've ever had. And there's no way I'm going to be able to answer them all. So I'll try and do the best I can. Homework. You want me to write essays and put it on the web afterwards? Sure. Yeah, not that one. No, just kidding. Not that one. They're a little out of order. What sets Unitarian Universalism apart from other religions, and what do they have in common? I don't know. So this actually relates to a number of questions that get asked almost every year, which I'm happy to answer, especially for those who are visiting today. And we do have a bunch of visitors today. You don't have to raise your hand. I don't want to single you out. But if you'd like to raise your hand if you're visiting, we'd love to see who you are. We don't ever do this. Look at all those visitors. You don't count. Nice to see you. Yeah. She grew up here. What sets Unitarian... So, Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition that was founded as a non-creedal faith tradition. We call ourselves a covenantal faith tradition. Most religious traditions, not all, but most of the mainline religious traditions that we have now in this country have some sort of dogma or creed or belief that you need to subscribe to in order for you to say that you are whatever, a Catholic, a Methodist, a Jewish. We are not a learned faith tradition. We are a learning faith tradition. So we are a covenantal faith tradition, which means we agree to be together in our search for truth and meaning. And you don't have to subscribe to a dogma or creed in order to be a Unitarian Universalist. For those of you who are visiting, there are, in this congregation, there are people who identify themselves as Jewish, as Christian, as theist, as agnostic, as atheist, as, what else? Muslim, as theist, Hindus, and Unitarian Universalists, because you can have spiritual practices and religious practices, and this is a spiritual container. Now, with that said, we have had 7 principles. We added an 8th principle in the recent years, and we just voted on lots of questions about Article 2, and I'll get there in a minute, but we just voted on at our General Assembly, which is the Association of Congregations coming together, to subscribe to affirm and promote values in addition to our principles in our bylaws. And the values are with love at the center. And I'll go back to, I have some printout I may get to later about what the other values are. I have not memorized them all. I never memorized the 7 principles. Like everyone else, I knew 1 in 7. Anyway, so that's what makes us sort of similar and different. We don't have common dogma that we believe in, but we do subscribe to values and principles. And what I often say is that you can say you're a Unitarian Universalist, but if you believe like you could be a horrible person in the world, you're not really practicing Unitarian Universalism. So it's about how you practice what we say about each other. So there we go. This question I get every single year, and I'm not answering it this year. Mystery, life is a riddle. I am a Mormon with 2 transgender children. Can I come to this church? I wanted to answer this question for sure, and the answer is absolutely you can come to this church. This is a church with love at the center, which is what we now say with our new values. It's the thing, actually, I like most about what we say about our new values. And so you are loved. Have you seen do we have one? Does anyone have one of our carry bags? Be seen, be loved. Kendra does. Read what it says, Nancy.
Beyond our goals, love reaches out. Be seen, be safe, be whole, be brave, be loved, belong.
It's on the landing page of the website, so go to the landing page of the website. I went to school in Salt Lake City and lived in Salt Lake City for 14 years, and our Mormon church friends next door are very kind and helpful people. And so, by the way, when we go back into the season, September after Labor Day, and this place gets packed, they allow us to park in their parking lot. So, thank you to the Mormon church. What are UU's position regarding the Bible? Usually like this. No, that's just a little bit of a joke. I can't tell you what UU's positions are about the Bible. It's because you have to make that decision about what you feel about the Bible, because we're non-dogmatic, and I'm not going to tell you how to feel about the Bible. I can tell you how I feel about the Bible. I went to seminary at a Methodist seminary, and I had never read the Bible before. I was Jewish, and that's not really how we approach things. And so the first week they said, look at the Bible, and I bought a Bible. My wife was raised Southern Baptist, is now a Unitarian Universalist minister as well. And so I sat down and I opened it up, and it says, in the beginning. So that's where I started, in the beginning. And she thought that was the funniest thing ever, because people don't actually sort of study the Bible that way. And I think that there are some extraordinary lessons about the patterns of human behavior in the Bible. And I think there are some unbelievably horrible things in the Bible. But I look at like 1 Corinthians and I think, who wrote this? This is so beautiful, right? You may not want to hear it at another wedding, but it's still beautiful. And I think, who wrote this? And so for me, there are, just like everything else that we go through as we go through religious life, we have to look at it, assess it for ourselves, think about it, see how it applies to us, how it's meaningful or not, and take that for yourselves. One of the things about our religious exploration education program is that the theory behind it is we don't tell the children what to think. We ask the children to think about their own thoughts through their own experience. And so we try to get children to, it's the same thing I'm asking of you. If you want to find out more about the Bible, read it and then think about it. I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. Let's see. I preached about that. How do I think UUs will embody love at the center as in our new values? Well, I actually did talk about that a couple of weeks ago from the pulpit. And I'm going to go over here now. And I'm hoping that it's a guide for us to live what we profess. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're allowed and not allowed to do in politics here at UUCF. We are not allowed from any official position and from the pulpit, any sermon, any official event, to endorse a candidate. That's against the law. Not saying that others don't do that, but we don't do that. And so what we are allowed to do is talk about issues. And we can talk about issues as much as we want. And we can talk about those issues as they relate to the people who profess those issues, right? And so if we're going to profess that we hold love at the center and that we believe in these values and that we believe in these principles, part of what I feel my job is, because I'm human too, is to live them as much as possible and to encourage you to live them as much as possible. That is not easy. We're human, we're tribal, we live in a polarized political environment. We're approaching, I think there's an election coming up. And so it's natural for us to want to fall back into the things that, I said this a couple of weeks ago for those of you who listened to my sermon from a couple of weeks ago. I'll sit at the TV and swear just as much as the next person does, when I see, I don't want to be too specific, rallies that I don't agree with. However, I try to hold myself accountable to that. And I'm going to try and hold all of us accountable as best we can to what it means to live with love at the center. So that's what I hope we'll do. I'm going to put that aside. Should we still talk about and teach the 7 guiding principles? Of course. They're a part of our history and they're a part of who we are. I do want to address this whole Article 2 post-UUAGA thing. For how many of you even know what I'm talking about? And how many of you don't know what I'm talking about? Look around, everybody. Not everyone has been following what happens at GA when we vote on the bylaws for the UUA. So here's my point. My point is that it's the stuff that we're talking about for the Article 2 vote was a vote for the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association to, in our official bylaws, look at an evolution of where we are and place values at the center of who we are as Unitarian Universalists in our Article 2 bylaws. Now, I have heard all kinds of rumors. For instance, the UUA is going to come and take our property. I think that may be because the president and the board may want a new boat. I don't know. Because I doubt they want to diminish the number of congregations in Unitarian Universalism. I just think that there's so many unfounded rumors and ridiculousness. What will happen here at UUCF as it relates to those Article 2 changes is we'll talk about, I think, love at the center more. That's it. There are no other mandates. There are no other issues involved. The UUA, I know the people at the UUA. I know their names. I'm friends with them. They don't have the time, energy, resources, or authority in any of our governing documents to do anything to us other than support us the way they have been. And so I just think that to worry about is, please don't worry about that. I'll let you know if they're coming for us. How's that? I have a few more minutes. Let me see if I can get to... how have newly married couples blended UU and Catholic value traditions as they add to their family with children? What an interesting question. We have, through the years, Unitarian Universalism has many, many blended families, people of 2 religious traditions. It is a place where, where people compromise, so to speak, to show up. I will tell you a quick story. Before I was married, I actually did date other people. One of those people she was a Lutheran, and I at the time identified as Jewish, and she wanted to go somewhere and pray together. And so she suggested a UU church. And I said, there's no way I'm going to a church. I'm Jewish. I do not want to see a pew. I do not want to see a steeple. And we never went together. And we never ended up together. But that's a whole other story. But there are parts of each faith tradition, especially those. Catholic faith tradition has very lovely, wonderful social gospel. And if you're going to look for the differences in the faith traditions, you're going to find them. But if you're going to look for similarities, you can find them too. And when I went to the seminary, the Methodist seminary, I was shocked at how lovely and fabulous The progressive Christians I met there they were so wonderful. As a matter of fact, on September 22nd, I think that sermon's going to be an invitation to a different kind of Jesus. And I found a completely different kind of Jesus at seminary than I thought. It was not Pat Robertson's Jesus. And it was a beautiful experience, and I think that blended families can find similarities in many things, and I'm always happy to talk to people about that more in person. Okay, I have 3 minutes. Let me see. What question would you most like to answer? I have no idea. What question would I most like to answer? Okay. Here's the question all these questions I would love to answer. There's so many good questions. Here's the question I think I would most like to answer. It's about the future of UUCF. Thank you for allowing me a moment to think. This is my 10th year at UUCF. I arrived here after a 1-year interim period. We had a period of phenomenal growth and then started to slide. And we began to chart that with other congregations in the area while we were reading about the decrease in attendance for religions all across the country. And as I charted that for other congregations all across the area, the 15 congregations I was charting, including the large ones, and there were 5 congregations, over 550 members at that time, they all were sliding except for 2 smaller ones that were growing. And so we went through this period of time, and then we went through, I can say the name, because I'm not endorsing any candidate or not. We went through the Trump years, which were pretty difficult for a lot of us. I'm not hiding that fact. We went through the pandemic together, which the whole world did, which was a challenge. And then, more than a challenge, and if I ever hear the word pivot again, I don't know what I'll do. And then we are where we are now. Last year, with the awareness of the need for us to restructure, I will tell you that all the large congregations in this area are going through exactly the same thing we did. And we also had the most phenomenal growth we've had in 1 year, maybe ever. Ever. Mary confirms ever. We had 67 new members last year. Our average pledge for new members went somewhere like from $700, if you remember this, Stacy, let me know, to like $1,300 or $1,400 per new member. We had the highest amount of new member pledging ever. Went from like $8,000 the year before to $68,000, right? So we've had this period of growth, and people say, to what do you attribute that? And I'm like, must be Mary's slides. I don't know what it is. I think what it is that we are in a time and a place where people are desiring community and connection and a positive, loving message and joy and hope and goodness and work together that will be meaningful and exploration of what the world is in ways that is hopeful because of so much negativity, right, in the world. And we do that here. And in part, I believe, whether we all agree or not on anything, whether it's Article 2 or who knows what, is that this is a place that will hold that. And so we're going to undertake this year a Living the Mission process. Because, as I've said, 2/3 of the people who are members of this congregation weren't here when we adopted that mission. And we're going to look forward into the future. And we're going to try and figure out who this congregation can define themselves, how this congregation can define themselves from this point forward. Not the past, not who we were, because the world has changed. and we're going to move forward and figure out who we are and who we want to be. And I am completely confident that this congregation, which is one of the healthiest congregations ever, we do not fight in this congregation, which is amazing, right? Because that happens in so many congregations. We're going to do this together, and the question that I'm answering now is that I believe in UUCF and that this is a vital community resource and that we're going to figure out what the future is going to look like together, and I am looking forward to that. Thank you for all these wonderful questions.